I am an islander and a farmer, a wilderness advocate and an agrarian. I am in favor of the world's wildness, not only because I like it, but because I think it's necessary to the world's life and to our own. For the same reason, I want to preserve the natural health and integrity of the world's landscapes, which is to say that I want the farmers, ranchers, and foresters to live in stable, locally adapted, resource-preserving communities. Why should islanders have a positive interest in, for example, farming? There are a lot of reasons, but the plainest is, islanders eat. To be interested in food but not in food production is clearly absurd. Islanders may feel entitled to be unconcerned about food production because they are not farmers, but they can't be let off that easily, for they are all farming by proxy. They can eat only if land is farmed on their behalf by somebody somewhere in some fashion. If islanders will attempt to resume responsibility for their need to eat, they will be led back fairly directly to all their previous concerns for the welfare of nature. Do islanders then wish to eat well or poorly? Would they like their food supply to be secure from one year to the next? Would they like their food to be free of poisons, antibiotics, alien genes, and other contaminants? Would they like a significant portion of it to be fresh? Would they like it to come to them at the lowest possible ecological cost? The answers, if responsibly given, will influence production, will influence land use, and will determine the configuration and the health of landscapes. If islanders merely eat what the supermarket provides and the government allows, they are giving economic support to all-out industrial food production, to animal factories, to the depletion of soil, rivers, and aquifers, to crop monocultures and the consequent losses of biological and genetic diversity, to the pollution, toxicity, and over-medication that are the inevitable accompaniments of all-out industrial food production, to a food system based on long-distance transportation and the consequent waste of petroleum and the spread of pests and diseases, and the division of the countryside into ever larger farms and ever larger fields receiving always less human affection and care. If, on the other hand, islanders are willing to insist on having the best food produced in the best way, as close to their homes as possible, and if they are willing to judge the quality of food and food production, then they are going to give economic support to an entirely different landscape. This landscape will have higher ratio of caretakers to acres. It will be at once more domestic and more wild than the industrial landscape. Can increasing the number of farms and farmers in an agricultural landscape enhance the quality of that landscape as wildlife habitat? It can do so, and the determining factor would be diversity. Don't forget that we are talking about a landscape that is changing in response to an increase in consumer demand for local food. If that demand is serious, if it is taken seriously, if it comes from informed and permanently committed consumers, if it promises necessary economic support, then the crop monocultures and animal factories will give way to the mixed farming of plants and animals. Pastured flocks and herds of meat animals, dairy herds, and poultry flocks will return, requiring, of course, pastures and hayfields. Moreover, since we are talking about a city, or in Haida Gwaiy's case, towns, that would be living in large measure from their local fields and forests, we are talking also about a local economy of decentralized, small, non-polluting, value-adding factories and shops that would be scaled to fit a landscape with the least ecological or social disruption. And thus, we can also credit to this economy an increase in small businesses, in self-employment, and a decrease in the combustible fuel needed for transportation. Such an economy is technically possible, there is no doubt of that. We have the necessary methods and equipment. The capacity of nature to accommodate and even to cooperate in such an economy is also undoubtable. We have the necessary historical examples. This is not, from nature's point of view, a pipe dream. What is doubtable, or at least unproven, is the capacity of modern humans to choose, make, and maintain such an economy. For at least a half a century, we have taken for granted that the methods of farming could safely be determined by the mechanisms of industry, and that the economies of farming could safely be determined by the economic interests of industrial corporations. We are now running rapidly to the end of the possibility of that assumption. The social, ecological, and even the economic costs have become too great, and the costs are still increasing all over the world. Now we must try to envision an agriculture founded not on mechanical principles, but on the principles of biology and ecology. If you want to farm sustainably, then you have got to make your farming conform to the natural laws that govern the local ecosystem. You've got to farm with both plants and animals in as great a diversity as possible. You've got to conserve fertility, recycle wastes, keep the ground covered, and so on. It is necessary, in short, to maintain a proper connection between the domestic and the wild. But this is not a transformation that we can drift into as we drift in and out of fashions, and it is not one that we should wait to be forced into by large-scale ecological breakdown. It won't happen if a lot of people, consumers and producers, city people and country people, conservationists and land users, don't get together deliberately to make it happen.